All right, psychotherapy can address underlying issues that are leading to the onset of the disorder. Maybe there's a really strict environment where there's a perfectionist required of them and they don't feel like they can obtain that, or everything else feels out of control, and so they will try to control how they feel. Their food, so that they feel like they have a sense of control. Maybe they're self-destructive, their self-esteem is low. This video down here, I encourage you to watch it, but one girl says, I started to have this eating disorder because I was touched inappropriately and I didn't want anyone to find me attractive. So we can help with that. We can medicate psychological disorders that are causing it, maybe the depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, but there's no actual medication for anorexia. Recovery is really difficult. About 50% will recover, but relapse is really going to be high. And you have continued medical treatment after that initial health disruption so that you can keep that progress monitored and reduce setbacks. There's another eating disorder that many people don't realize, and this is called orthorexia. Now, these individuals are focused on eating too healthy. They remove so much from their food that they're not getting from their diet, that they don't get the nutrition that they need. They may only eat plant-based food that's raw, but they're not getting all the nutrients that they need, and that's causing problem in itself. And they become fixated on this, and they become very extreme, and then they have malnourishment. Even if they're eating healthy foods, maybe they're only eating plants, they're not getting the nutrition that they need, and that can lead them to death. I do encourage you to watch this video as well. If it doesn't work, let me know. This one messes up a lot. So where do these eating disorders come from? Well, the psychodynamic theory says that we are trying to regress. We want to live at a time prior to puberty. Maybe the family environment is negative, and so I'm going to control what's going on with what I'm eating. There may be a history of abuse, or the parent labeled the child as overweight, or again, those expectations are too high. So they then control the situation by what they eat. Sociocultural perspective says that it is what society has told us, that they have these websites that are pro-Ana and pro-Mia. They're kind of hard to find on Google right now, but you are able to go and find how to be pro-anorexic or pro-Mia. They give you ideas, the inspiration, diets to do, competitions. Some people would do competitions on pro-Mia and see how long someone could go without eating, and they would die. The winner would. So it's really scary what you can find. Check out this video. It gives you some information. Society tells us that slimness is ideal, and so that we have to be slim in order for us to be beautiful and attractive. Our most recent Miss America was 17, her BMI, and so healthy BMI is 18 or even 18.5 is considered. Anything lower than 18.5 is malnourished, or 18 I think is the new standard. But we're telling you, if you're beautiful, then you're malnourished, and so we have to be very careful with what we say to society. And then we have the genetic perspective. They believe that it runs in families. Not that that's genetic, but maybe those perfectionist tendencies can cause it, and that obsession trait. So how do we motivate this to get a successful weight? How do we keep hunger healthy? Learn appropriate and accurate body image, okay? You have to realize that you're okay. Yes, maybe you can lose some weight. Yes, maybe you need to eat healthier. If you're implementing those vegetables and the fruit and the protein, the healthy protein and all of that, then you're going to be healthier, and you need to realize that and appreciate it. You don't have to be bone thin like the models say. A lot of the time they're even photoshopped. So just be happy with who you are. And if you don't really like it, don't be hateful towards yourself, but work to improve it and be proud of your hard work. Recognition of inappropriate eating cues. A lot of times I eat when I'm stressed or bored, and that's not healthy. I need to be eating when I'm hungry, and I need to be eating proper things. I need to view food as fuel, not just something that tastes good or something that I just need to crunch something right now. Eating habits, be consistent with that caloric intake. Research kind of shows a lot of registered dietitians will say they want you to eat 6 small meals a day, not 6 large meals, 6 small meals a day, like apple paired with nuts. a boiled egg, or a small salad, different things all throughout the day so that you keep that blood sugar level even instead of up and down. Regular physical activity, whether it's walking, doing crazy activities, something, keep some physical activity going that helps you be healthy. Have a plan when you go out to eat or in atypical situations. If you're in that situation, you want to be able to prepare for it. So if you're going to go out to eat, look up the menu online and plan. Otherwise, when you get there, it's really hard and you'll be like, oh, that looks really good and I want it. But if you already know what you want, you get excited about it. And then in moderation, everything needs to be in moderation. You saw the people who are orthorexic. They're eating so healthy. But again, moderation. Okay, you need to be able to live a little bit. You can have cake on your birthday. They're not telling you to not have cake, but you shouldn't probably have cake every single day or for every single meal. Okay, so you kind of got to figure out what it is. Again, the other contributing factors that we're seeing, the media tells us thinness is ideal, low self-esteem, mental illness, life transition, that stress, family issues, all of this. So here's a review to look back over and kind of remember who is what. Okay? Emotions are going to be feelings that affect us, and they have a physiological arousal, that spontaneous response. And it can be either positive or negative. So you would have fear is going to have a sympathetic arousal, and then the cognitive thought is going to be the belief that one is in danger, and then behavioral would be avoidance tendencies. So yesterday, my little guy was going through this tunnel. It was Halloween tunnel thing, and he didn't want me to go in there because A, I don't like Halloween, but B, there was a mouse in there, and he was like, you should avoid this because you're scared of mice, okay? He's already learned the behavioral component. If we're fearful of something, we don't go around it because then that will help us to not be scared of it. All right, so you have emotion versus mood. Mood is going to be prolonged, less intense affective state. It doesn't occur in response to something. A mood is just kind of not consciously recognized, but it's kind of intentional. It's not intentional, it's just kind of there. Where emotion is a subjective state that we use to often describe our feelings. And it's relatively intense and it occurs with that experience. And so we consciously experienced it and it's intentional, whereas mood is not intentional. We don't wake up and decide we want to be grumpy today. And you do see that toddlers can cycle through emotions very quickly. The James Lange theory says that emotions arise from physiological arousal. You see the snake, the heart and respiration rate increase, that physiological arousal, and then the feeling of fear. The Cannon-Barr theory says physiological arousal and emotional experience occur simultaneously, yet independently. So they occur at the same time but are independent of each other. You see the snake at the same time that you see the physiological arousal and you feel fear. Okay, so we see that there's some connection with this stuff because we see people with a spinal cord injury that they could still experience emotion, but it was less intense than somebody who didn't have that spinal cord injury. So the suppression of the facial motion does lower the intensity, but we do see that there's a connection with being able to move it more. Tells us that we may also, that it is not necessarily connected to that emotion, but it does increase that intensity. The Schachter-Singer two-factor theory of emotion says that there's the two factors, physiological and cognitive. So physiological arousal is interpreted in context to the emotional experience. So you see the snake, then you have the physiological arousal and the cognitive assessment of it as fear, and then you experience fear. Okay? And so they believe that physiological arousal is similar across different types of emotion. Okay? The Lazarus cognitive mediational theory of emotion are determined by our appraisal of stimulus. So unlike the Schachter-Singer model, you have the appraisal that occurs before the label. So the appraisal is immediate and unconscious. So these are just kind of lay them out so you can help and see what's going on. Think back to chapter 3 for all of the brain that's happening there and where it's functioning. Expression of emotion is going to be really interesting to look at. I love emotion because we see that it is universal. Smiling and showing your teeth is our universal sign. We see this across cultures. How we carry ourselves, our posture, and our gesture can impact what we're trying to say. But again, it also can matter. Some of this can be different based on culture. Emotional intelligence is really important. It's important for us to look at people and understand why they're doing what they're doing, being able to read that situation so that we are not acting inappropriately. For instance, let's say that we just finished our midterm and I did awesome on it and I want to go up and talk to somebody and they're kind of crying about it. Is this the time for me to go and say, I did so awesome on my midterm? No. I can console them, I can see what's going on with them, and then I can share this with somebody who is ready for it, okay? So emotional intelligence is important to be able to read people and to look at them and know what's going on. So there's a lot of social signals that you can see: hand gestures, body stance, posture, interpersonal distance. I love not relationships. I do love relationships, but I love to be in class with my students because I can see their social cues. They can tell me when they're interested in something, and then that gets me super excited to talk about it. Or I can see who's in a new relationship and how fun that is and the excitement that they have, or who broke up and who doesn't want to even be in the same room as each other. But I read all of this through the social signals that are given to me. Okay, so I know when people are in a relationship and I know when they're not, so that I don't come up to be like, hey, y'all still in a relationship, when it's evident that they've broken up. Okay, so it is important to check your emotional IQ, and you can check it out on this quiz here if you're interested. Emojis, you guys know these are important. They help us to understand text messages. If we get a message that says we need to talk, has a mad face, we know they're upset. Or even a winky face, we know, hey, they're not mad at us. Okay, so all of the emojis are helping us understand the written language. Basic emotions we see are cross-cultural. So Paul Ekman was studying some different tribe, and he was on an ethnographic study, and he found that these micro expressions that people have, that they show within like a millisecond, are going to tell us what they're actually thinking despite what they say. It's really interesting. So if you look here, it talks about like how the drooping of the upper eyelids, the sadness, losing focus in one eye, and then the slight pulling of the corner tells you sadness. You may show this in only a millisecond, but if you're trained and you look at this, you can see this and people can tell you things without ever telling you anything. There's a really neat series that's out about this. It's called Lie to Me. There is a copy in the library, and I believe it's on Hulu too, but it's really interesting to watch. You can watch this trailer here too, or even look at it on YouTube. But he said that micro expressions, they just go cross-culturally, okay? He saw this when he was working in that ethnographic study. And so it really helps us to understand what people are saying or doing whenever they're talking to us. Now, culturally, there's some other things that will be shown that you'll see. The U.S. is going to express negative emotions like fear, anger, and disgust. And then alone when they're by themselves and when they're with other people. Japanese people are not going to do that until they're alone. And so they're not going to express this kind of stuff in there. And it's just a cultural thing. So you also need to know what's going on culturally so that you can understand people. Okay, so does smiling make you happy, or does happy make you smiling? So the facial feedback hypothesis talks about facial expressions that are capable of influencing our emotions. And I've heard this a lot, that a lot of people will just smile in the mirror until they feel better, or just smile and then they actually believe that they're in a better mood. The support here says that depressed individuals reported less depression after the paralysis of their frowning muscles with Botox injections. Okay, so because the emotional stimulation wasn't there, the physical expression was, or the emotional stimulation was there, but the physical expression couldn't be expressed. Physiological arousal was impacted, and then the emotional experience could be interpreted in a different way. Happiness is something that's really excited to look at. Martin Siegelman talks about authentic happiness, and he says you have to have 3 components. Positive emotions, you have to feel the feelings of pleasure, warmth, and comfort. Flow is whenever you do something and time just kind of either stops or passes by quickly. That whatever you're really good at, and we all have something we're really good at, passes by. We have so much fun, we lose track of time. And then meaning. You have to find meaning and purpose in what you're doing. And those three will bring true happiness.